and welcome to today's meeting of the Planning and Highways Committee on Tuesday the 22nd of July 2025. I will now hand you over to Abby to announce the housekeeping arrangements.
Thank you, Chair. In the event of the fire alarm sounding, please take instruction from staff and stewards. The assembly point is at Tudor Square. Please can I request everyone to switch mobile devices to silent mode so as not to disturb the conduct of the meeting. The meeting today will be webcast and the recording will also be available for people to view later through the Council's website. It is also possible that Sheffield Live TV will record and rebroadcast this meeting. While ever the meeting is open to the public, photography, video and sound recording of the proceedings is permitted. However, the Chair has discretion to withdraw or suspend this permission, for example, if the recording is disrupting the conduct of the meeting or is being undertaken in a manner which could capture personal information, or in the event that a member of the public participating in a meeting objects to being recorded. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Abby. My name is Mike Chaplin. I'm a councillor for Southey Ward and I'm one of two joint chairs of this committee. And I will now hand you over to Alan and then the other committee members to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon. I'm Councillor Alan Woodcock, East Ecclesfield Ward and joint chair of planning.
Hello, Rob Bannister, Councillor for Grace Park Ward.
Good afternoon, Councillor Tony Downing, Councillor for Musborough Ward.
Good afternoon, Mark Whittaker, Councillor for Stocksbridge and Upper Don.
Councillor Mary Lee, Darnell Ward.
Good afternoon, Councillor Gary Weatherall for Shire Green and Brightside Ward.
Good afternoon, Marianne Elliott, Councillor for Gleadless Valley.
Hello, it's Councillor Brian Holmshaw for Brumhill and Sharrow.
Good afternoon, Andrew Sanger, Councillor for Forward Ward.
Good afternoon, Glynis Chapman, Councillor for Musborough Ward.
Good afternoon, Cliff Woodcraft, Councillor for Forward Ward.
Thank you. I will let the officers introduce themselves as and when the items of business that they're dealing with come up. It is a fairly short agenda today. With the main item of planning business having been withdrawn on I think it was the 15th of July last week. I've received apologies for absence from Councillor Nikki Belfield and Councillor Janet Riddler. Councillor Mary Lee is subbing for Nikki Belfield and Councillor Rob Bannister for Janet Riddler, and Brian Holmshaw is substituting for Councillor Henry Nottage. So thank you all for stepping in at this late hour. Item number 3, exclusions of the press and public. There are no items that require that. Item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any members who wish to declare an interest in any of the items of business on the agenda? Take silence to mean no. So item 5, minutes of the previous meeting. Are members happy to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting of the Planning and Highways Committee held on the 24th of June 2025? Thank you, members. That's
Chair,
agreed.
Chair,
sorry.
Apologies, Chair. I wasn't quite quick enough to say an item is on the agenda, item 7, which is a tree preservation order. This is in my ward. I have not had any contact or anything to do with this tree preservation order.
Thank you for that, Brian. Item 6, we put in the date for the next site visit, and that's to be advised. It'll be sometime in August. Monday the 17th of August. And it's quite likely that that one will go ahead because, as you know, there were no site visits held yesterday. So now we come on to item 7, the tree preservation order number 490 at 184 Psalter Lane, Sharrow, in Sheffield, S11 8UR, and that's on page 15 of your agendas.
Sorry, Chair, can I just say it's on page 15 of the agenda if you're looking at it online, but if it's hard copy, it's the separate document.
Thank you for that clarification. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Galley. I'm one of the community tree officers at Sheffield. So today I'm seeking confirmation of TPO 490 that was made on the 27th of February 2025. The order protects 3 trees, T1 a mature oak, T2 a mature horse chestnut, and T3 an early mature sycamore, all located on the southwest boundary of 184 Psalter Lane, adjacent to Stretton Road. The trees are situated within the Nether Edge Conservation Area and are currently protected to a limited extent by Section 211 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. The property at the address is being renovated and is subject to an active planning application for further development. Simon Farriman, Community Tree Officer, visited the site on 2 occasions, the 15th and the 31st of January 2025, to assist the Council's Landscape Officer with a site assessment. While visiting site, he found that trees within the grounds had been damaged via unauthorised pruning, soil disturbance and the piling of spoil within their root protection areas, in contravention of Section 211 of the Town and Country Planning Act, and with a general disregard for the health of the trees, as demonstrated by the photos in Appendix D and the photos also provided in the correspondence from the objector. The planning application currently submitted allows for the retention of the 3 trees that are subject to this order. However, there are significant works planned around the rooting areas of the trees, and without careful management, other damage or disturbance may occur. A tempo assessment was carried out with the result that a TPO was defensible. With regards to amenity, the 3 trees are mature, in good outward condition and highly visible from Stretton Road and Psalter Lane, where they form part of a green backdrop softening the view along these busy thoroughfares through the Nether Edge Conservation Area. The trees have a reasonable retention span estimated at 20 to 40 years, meaning that they will offer amenity to the area for many years to come. The trees are visible in their setting in Appendix D of the report. The expediency for making the order is clear due to the proposed development of the site, and in particular significant changes within or adjacent to the rooting areas of the trees. When this is also combined with works that have already taken place and the pruning of other trees on the site without a Section 211 notice, and building waste being stored within the root protection areas, there is a clear need for protection of these trees. 2 representations were received, one in favour of confirming the order and one objecting to confirmation of the order. These can be read in Appendix C, and my responses can also be found within the report. The objection focused on 2 main aspects: the condition of the trees and their long-term retention prospects in relation to their surroundings and their proximity to the boundary wall, and also the expediency of providing extra protections to trees already protected to a limited extent by Section 211 of the Town and Country Planning Act, by virtue of being located within a conservation area and also the potential impacts that this might have on an active planning application. In response to that, as regards to the condition of the trees, the amenity of the trees has been assessed using a proper system of amenity evaluation and by an officer with the appropriate experience and qualifications to undertake such an assessment, including any assessments of the tree's health and reasonable retention spans in their location. Regarding the proximity to structures including the boundary wall, if the council receives evidence which establishes that an actionable nuisance exists and that the only means of abating that nuisance would be the removal of a tree, then officers would be unlikely to recommend confirmation of a TPO which protects that tree. If evidence is provided subsequently that an actionable nuisance exists, this can be dealt with via a planning application to work on protected trees, which, with the location of the trees being in the conservation area anyway, would have been the case. But for the avoidance of doubt, no such evidence has been presented in this case that there is an actionable nuisance being caused by the trees. With regards to the trees already being protected to a limited extent, As works have already been carried out to trees on site without notice being provided to the council, and a planning application for extensive works around the trees has been submitted, it is still deemed to be expedient to add extra protections to the trees by way of a tree preservation order, in addition to any planning conditions that may arise from the active application. Section 197 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990 states that the council may make TPOs in addition to imposing conditions so as to give effect to those conditions or otherwise. In other words, the council is empowered to strengthen conditions via the making of a TPO where it is deemed appropriate. It should be noted that the planning application is yet to be determined. With that said, there's no prohibition on the council making a TPO, which would then exist alongside and be additional to any conditions relating to tree retention should the application be approved. The TPO would also allow the council to condition replacement trees if the trees subject to the order were removed at any point in the future. The submission of a planning application may provide the local authority with a basis on which to consider it expedient to make a TPO. However, a TPO cannot be used to obstruct a planning application. If permission is granted and if the implementation of that permission requires the removal of trees under the protection of a TPO or allows works to be carried out whilst conditioning their retention, then the authority's consent is not required for those works. In conclusion, my recommendation is that the order is confirmed without modification so as to protect the trees that provide significant amenity value to the locality. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. We go now to members' questions, and I've got Tony's got his hand up, and then Marianne, and then Gary Weatherall. So, Tony.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. I'm looking at 2.3 of the report, where there's a section in there that says Planning Act 1990 have been damaged by unauthorised pruning and passage of heavy vehicles and the storing of materials and spoil within their road protection area. Would you say that was an act of vandalism to do something like that to a tree of this age and magnitude? Thank you.
The trees are already protected with having the conservation area there, so any works that would affect the rooting area of those trees would have been, well, should have been subject to an application beforehand. So damage can occur because of this, these actions that have taken place. As far as I'm aware, our enforcement team were made aware of that as well. The results of actions like this, the damage being seen in the trees can sometimes take a while, as the damage to the roots can be quite slow acting. So it could be that damage has been caused, but it might be a little while before we're able to see the extent of that damage.
Thank you. Marianne.
Thank you for the report. Just a point of clarification. So you say this is under a current planning application, so there may at some point be conditions put on this planning application with regards to those trees. So the TPO, just for clarification, that's going to provide robust protection for the trees prior to that, up until the point there may or may not be conditions regarding the trees as well. So it's in conjunction with.
Yeah, so the application is yet to be decided. If it is approved, I would expect that there would be conditions relating to the trees, and the TPO basically helps to strengthen those conditions. So yeah, they do work alongside each other, but if the application is refused, then having the TPO there still provides us with this option in the future of conditioning replacement trees should any of them sort of die off.
Thank you, that's really useful to know.
Gary?
Thanks, Chair. It's just one thing, just on back of Councillor Downing there. It's so this has already happened. It's, I mean, we can see on page 30 on Appendix D that they've already dumped all this soil on against the tree. You know what I mean? Now, what action? You know, do we find people, or do you go and see them, or have they moved all that rubbish? You know what have they done to eliminate the more damage to that tree? I know we've got to wait to see if there's any damage to it, but it's not really doing much good, is it, with all this pressure on it? So I just really can fill us in a little bit more on that. Thank you.
So, as far as I'm aware, subsequent to the site visit, enforcement were involved with this. And I think from the pictures that are provided in the objection letter, you can see that tree protection fencing has gone up subsequently. So I think this was off the action of enforcement officers visiting the site and explaining the responsibilities that the property owner had regarding the health of the trees. So as far as I'm aware, those things have now been rectified after the fact. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Mark?
This may be just my ignorance of the procedures, but why are you recommending a provisional tree preservation order rather than a permanent tree preservation order?
So this meeting is for the confirmation of the order, which would make it permanent. So it's provisional for now until a decision is made whether to confirm or otherwise.
And Marianne, you had a further question?
Apologies. Yeah, just a quick point. I think one of the objections was burden on the property owner if the trees are protected. That's not a material consideration, is it, as far as I know?
So any of the points in the objection sort of need to be considered as part of the process of confirming. However, the reason I've not responded to that within the report is we wouldn't offer legal advice to private property owners basically regarding their trees. The burden on the property owner doesn't change much because the trees are already protected by virtue of the conservation area. So in my mind, there's not much added burden there because an application process would need to be followed anyway for any works to the trees. So the TPO doesn't change much for the property owner, but does change things in terms of the enforcement that we're able to use.
If there are no more questions, are there any comments from members? Okay, there are no comments. Can we take a vote on whether to support the officer recommendations? Can I see a show of hands, those in favour? That decision is unanimous. Now, as you know, the McDonald's application was withdrawn last week, and this was against the officer citing 4 grounds that were material as to why the application should not go ahead. And I imagine the applicant has decided to go away and either drop it altogether or to rework the application to make it more acceptable. So we'll see what happens with that in the coming months. That then leads us on to item 9 on today's agenda, which is the record of planning appeals and submissions and decisions. And having consulted with the other joint chair of the committee, we feel that as there is no officer present to explain the report, it would be better to hold that over to next month's meeting. I do appreciate that some of you are substituting today, so if you do have any questions, you could put those in to be carded, or
put them into me and I'll forward them on if you need to.
yeah, Abby will be happy to take the questions and pass them on if you have any concerns from it. But we will take that next month, which means this will bring the meeting to a close now. And I thank you all for coming along this afternoon. And I'm sorry that it wasn't a bit more meaty for you.